If you're a pop culture junkie who loves TV, film, music, comedy, and other really important stuff, then you've come to the right place. Get ready and settle in for Classic Conversations, the best pop culture interviews in the world. That's right, we circled the globe so you don't have to. If you're ready to be the king of the water cooler, then you're ready for Classic Conversations with your host, Jeff Dwoskin.
All right, Sally, thank you so much for that amazing introduction. You get the show going each and every week, and this week was no exception. Welcome, everybody, to episode 256 of Classic Conversations. As always, I am your host, Jeff Dwoskin. Great to have you back for what's sure to be a rockin' conversation for the ages. My guest today is founder and primary songwriter of the legendary rock group Living Colour. Vernon Reid is here. We're about to rock out in just a few seconds. And in these few seconds, just a quick reminder of my amazing episode last week with Chris Cluse, TV writing legend. Talked about SCTV, Cheers, Night Court. Chris shared tons of amazing stories, including discovering a one Jennifer Aniston. You got to check that out, episode 254. But right now, episode 256, with one of the greatest guitarists of all time, Vernon Reid. We're hanging, we're talking multiverses, we're talking Flash, Ezra Miller, Jonathan Majors, UAPs, living in a world obsessed with artificial intelligence. This episode has got it all. Enjoy. All right, everyone, I'm excited to introduce my next guest. Crowned number 66 on Rolling Stone's list of greatest guitarists of all time, MTV Video Music Award winner, Grammy Award winner, founder of the rock band Living Colour. Welcome to the show, Vernon Reid.
Hello.
How are you?
Hey there. I'm good. Summer's hot. It's the hottest it's ever been. It's even hotter. No, I'm good. All the weird stuff going on. Yes,
Cult of Personality has never been
more relevant. I mean, it's completely blind. Yeah. No, it's a good time. I mean, it's a weird time. You know, my daughter just turned 20 years old at the end of June, and that's kind of mind-boggling. I had her birthday in Paris, which is kind of fantastic. And, and I kind of am a dad that's like, I wonder what she's doing today.
Same way. I have my youngest just turned 21. She was in London, your hometown, studying.
Yeah.
A lot has changed since we originally put on the radio Cult of Personality.
Really, Brooklyn is my hometown. Crown Heights, because London was like just a moment. I mean, I was born there, but I was taken to the States when I was one. I wasn't even two. I was 1.5. The day after I was born, they had one of the biggest race riots, not really in celebration of my birth, but it just happened to be one of the biggest in Notting Hill, right? Which is funny because Notting Hill, as some people know, was the title of one of the great rom-com. So people think of Notting Hill, they have the warm fuzzies, but Notting Hill was pretty much a battleground the day after I was born. Of course, later on, my daughter went to Brixton. She actually went to London and she actually went over to Brixton, and it's not like it was back in Thatcher's Britain. But I always think to myself, man, I missed having a legit English accent. I can't even mock up Hackney accent. I can't even do it. My voice is so Brooklyn. But it's a weird thing. Whenever I'm there, there's like an alternate, because everything is the multiverse, right? That's all we do. We talk about the multiverse as if we're ever going to walk through the doorway and find some different circumstances, It's like we're obsessed with time travel, multiverses. There's another me loving crumpets.
The one that stayed in London.
Earth 616?
Well, let's talk about the timeline that we're
wait a minute.
both
Is this Earth 616? I don't know if it is because, there's, we don't have a Hulk on this timeline. So, even when we talk about 616, that's kind of like the Marvel timeline.
I'm more of a Batman 89 guy.
Batman, yeah. Did you see the Flash movie?
I haven't seen the Flash movie yet. No, and apparently a lot of people haven't.
Yeah.
But did you see it?
I liked it. I mean, I just thought it was really interesting, the whole Ezra Miller thing, you know what I mean? And, he does a really good job. I mean, it's like this is all this problematic stuff that he got into off screen. And it's interesting because they didn't pull the movie. And over at Marvel, apparently Jonathan Majors is kind of in suspension or whatever. It's a very weird thing. So, I mean, the case with Jonathan is a little, the facts, it turns out that, I don't want to get into it, but it's interesting. Ezra Miller is doing his thing, and Jonathan Majors is like, well, he hasn't been canceled, but he's kind of like on the brink of it. And I just think that that's interesting.
It seems now they're holding off. A couple years ago,
oh yeah,
they would have just
done.
It would have been over.
Done.
But now they kind of just wait and see and let it actually play out, not just react to an allegation, see what actually happens. And Jonathan Majors he's amazing actor. They literally restructured everything around him, like everything. It's like
he's kind of he's an amazing actor. But if you see Creed 3, you know, that aspect of him, that's very, the funny thing about Jonathan Majors is that he can be really sensitive. He can really play, but his presence is really kind of imposing. He can be incredibly imposing. I mean, there were some moments in Lovecraft Country that were really disturbing. In Creed 3, he basically embodies a kind of cunning violence. He brings a lot of attention to his role, and he's brilliant at it. And it's just interesting that in his role as Kang, he can be avuncular, he can be really power mad, and all the rest of it. So his range is off the meter. He's really an actor's actor.
It'd be interesting to, one day when they kind of look back, did The Flash underperform because people stayed away from Ezra Miller? They compare it to like, well, it's not superheroes because Guardians did great. But Guardians, I think, was like the third movie of a lot of beloved characters that people wanted to go see again. Whereas The Flash, I don't know that.
Did The Flash not do well?
Nah, it's considered a failure. I think it.
Really?
Yeah. And you'd think like even with Michael Keaton coming back.
Yeah.
I haven't heard anyone say it wasn't good.
Honestly, I kind of don't like his embodiment of the Flash. I was not really into the way he portrayed Flash. His Barry Allen, there's something of like making him a comic book fanboy and whatnot, and making him a kind of a nebbish, and he's just kind of annoying. And really, in this movie, there's a subtle shift in the character. And I have to say, it's the first time that I actually, kind of start to accept his portrayal of the Flash, because I really couldn't stand it. I really was like, oh my God. And when I heard there was going to be a movie, I was like, why? And it's strange. It roughly parallels, like, everything is multiverse, right? Like, and there's this whole thing about we want to go back to the past and fix our mistakes because it's intolerable the way life is apparently linear, right? Like, it's the door swings one way and we're moving forward, and what we make of our time or whatever that means, it is, I don't want to say what it is, but it's so much that we find intolerable, that we find difficult to accept. And we've built entire edifices of fantasy built around the fact that we can't deal with the inevitable, or we can't deal with, I swiped left instead of swiping right. I stayed home when I should have went out, or I went out when I should have stayed home. You know, there are many people sitting in jail saying, God, I wish I had skipped the bar that night.
Right. Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah. It's, there's been many times where I go, oh man, when you kind of connect the dots backwards, right? And like say like, all right, this is where I'm here because of this one thing. And then to think, oh my God, I almost didn't do that. What would I be doing right now? Or who would I be talking to right now if I hadn't made that call or jumped on that Zoom and accidentally met that person who changed my life, altered piece of it. And
now you wind up here with Vernon Reid on a Zoom call, right? If you'd only made the right decision, you'd only made the right decisions.
Right now I've decided I will never go back in time and change a thing, because here we are.
And also One of the speculations about like the UFPs or whatever they're being called now is because nobody can figure out, it's strange that finally the Air Force and the Navy are saying, well, we regularly encounter these objects. They appear to be solid objects, the Tic Tacs or whatever they're called. And the pilots to be highly trained, capable individuals. These are not people. You cannot fly an F-14 and be a fantasist. You have to keep so many simultaneous details. You can't be in a weird, you can't, it's a precision machine that's worth a ton of money, very dangerous. So when these pilots say, we saw this thing flying, it flew next to us, we didn't see any exhaust, it doesn't seem to have an engine, it's keeping pace with us, then it kind of does zigzags and is clowning us. This aerial phenomenon, and one speculation, maybe it's time machine tourism.
Ooh, I like that.
Right? Maybe it's time machine tourism, and maybe they have it. These are the rules. We don't engage, because the one thing that's interesting is like, people saying, well, the fact that we don't know what these things are, and the fact that they fly in patterns, our technology, we have nothing that can emulate what these things do. We don't know what the propulsion system is. We have no clue. And one thing that's consistent, though, is that these things have not attacked the planes. They don't seem to have weaponry. Basically, they fly rings around. They can go under the surface of the ocean and then launch themselves. It's like, but the one thing they're not doing, they're not shooting out death rays. They're not shooting out tractor beams. What are they? Are they probes from the future? Are they cameras? But they're not attacking. It's a weird thing. So, one of the things, maybe time is a kind of a loop, or maybe they're like just kind of going, oh, let's go see what the monkeys are doing. Let's go see what the flying monkeys are doing. Huh, that's cute. Look at them. Wow, they've got stealth mode. My God. Just maybe
they got rear view mirrors now, yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's like a middle school class on a class trip. Just let's go back and see what our great not so great grandparents did.
It is an interesting kind of thought. I don't know what it is, but I don't like sit here and go, oh, we're the only people that could possibly be the intelligent people in the whole entire universe of universes of galaxies. So it's possible that something's there. You'd think we would see it, or they'd slip up or something, Like they're also so great. They're so great at technology and being conspicuous that, I accept when an F-14. So I wish they would, wish we would know more, but sorry to interrupt, but something flew by the window and got my attention. Have to check it out. But I do want to thank everyone for their support of the sponsors real quick. When you support the sponsors, you're supporting us here at Classic Conversations, and that's how we keep the lights on. And now back to my conversation with Vernon Reid. Are there aliens among us?
Well, one thing that's happening is that we have created the beginnings of alien entities in the form of these large language models. We have something, it's not alive, but it's interacting in such a way, in ways that are fascinating, and doing things that we had no idea what's going on. And that if you go right now to OpenAI, there's a statement in part of the OpenAI website where they really say, we don't know how we're going to control this. So many people now, there's kind of AI fatigue. People are bored. You hear about it all the time. There's the AI this and AI that. And I think the one thing that people don't really take into account is everything that the researchers and developers are talking about. They're talking about technology that's siloed. All of them are siloed. ChatGPT-4, Bard, Lambda, none of them are free-range functioning right now. And the thing that's so curious about it is the only way, if you listen to Sam Altman, he's kind of like, well, we kind of have to push the button. We have to kind of push the button and let the thing out. And people say, do not push the button. People that work with this stuff say, don't push the button. don't do it. If you push that button, there's no unpushing that button.
It's amazing how quickly everyone sort of embraced AI, how quickly. I remember when ChatGPT was just starting to get some heat, and I was talking to my CTO of my startup. He's like, it's weird. I'm like, what? He's like, no, the news isn't covering this yet. This is like the scariest, biggest advancement ever. And most news people and most people at this point, it's just millions, a couple million maybe. And
Right.
they don't know what's even coming. That was even before 3.5. That was like the first version of it.
Right.
And it was like something I read was it was the changing of the UI that made it so much easier for people to use. And then it just blew up because ChatGPT had existed for a bit. And then there was like this turning point where all of a sudden it exploded. And then one thing I read was because they made it easier to use.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, we're going to see this as an outgrowth of the pandemic as well. I mean, certain things that may have been in development for quite a bit longer, everybody had nothing but time on their hands. So it's interesting that essentially I totally feel that the sudden appearance of the generative artwork, of the generative text modeling, the beginnings of voice cloning, because there are a number of technologies that are related and they're all emergent and they're all kind of coming towards each other. The voice modeling, which is now voice cloning, that was around for a few years, like fake Obama. But when you hear it, there was a company called Lyre, named after the Australian lyre bird that can imitate any sound, like an organic, and nobody knows quite what the mechanism is. The lyrebird is an organic sampler, if you will. It doesn't just do bird calls. It could do bird calls of any other species, but it'll do trap music if it hears it. Reproduce like a lo-fi version of it, exactly. So this company came up with these kind of making celebrities say things they didn't say. Well, the first version of that, it was obvious that it wasn't Obama because you could hear the gating. You could hear the words you could hear that it's artificial. This is 4, 5, 6, whatever it was years ago. And now there are a number of companies. There's the whole thing with fake Drake. It's not Drake and The Weeknd.
Right.
And the vocals are, so now this kind of voice cloning is becoming somewhat ubiquitous. And that's a very weird thing. That's a very, very weird thing. The idea of natural speaking, text to speech has evolved tremendously. And if you want to subscribe to a service, I looked into it a little bit. I mean, you can get a natural speaking voice. Say you want somebody to speak in English accent. You could pay maybe $50 a year to get that. But as you go up the scale, I mean, there was a service I saw, it was literally thousands of dollars, but you get an actual clone of an actor's voice that you just write the text and they will speak it like indistinguishable from natural speech.
We're going to put celebrity and impersonators out of business.
Right.
Some people like try to do these videos online and they try and jump on the latest trends. And somebody did one and said, and you can clone your voice and listen to this. Can you even tell the difference? I DM them individually because I don't like commenting on things online that I don't necessarily agree with, especially if I know someone. And I said, this is like the worst thing ever. He goes, why, man? Why? I said, you ever have a relative get hacked on Facebook and start DMing you from their Facebook account that they're trapped somewhere and they need you to send them $1,000? Think they know everything? He goes, yeah. He goes, like, add their voice to that. Okay. It is a scammer's dream to be able to have this access. It's so easy to get everyone's information, and then you have their voice. It's a scary combination.
It's bad. It's like Pandora. I mean, it is really, when you combine this voice cloning with the fact that the large language voice modelers they sound incredibly plausible. They sound really plausible, but occasionally, like people, they make up their own facts. That's the thing that's really disturbing about these AIs. They're not intelligent, but they're trained on these inaccurate models, and they'll say stuff that's really like, wow, that sounds authoritative. Now imagine you take that and you put that together with a trusted voice, even if the voice isn't modeled on an actual person, but say you create a natural sounding voice that's meant to sound like a judge that's in his 50s, or that's meant to sound like a successful businessman. And this person is telling you stuff with that kind of confidence. And the copy is being written by a large language model and it's being voiced by this kind of clone. The thing that's happening is that there are people who cannot wait for the language models to be unbridled. They can't wait for the button to be pushed. They are ready, because also the other part of it is that we're the missing link. We anthropomorphize. We can't help ourselves. We see a face on the moon, we see a face in a tree, we see a face in a cloud. And already people who have worked with the large language models, who themselves, and they know better, have been taken in. And they're trained to know better. These things being let out in the wild, because this is the thing, even with, Sam Altman and all these folks going to Congress and testifying and saying, we need regulation, we need rules of the road. The thing is, the money's pouring in. The button is not going to go unpushed forever, because ultimately what Google's saying, what Microsoft is saying, what OpenAI is saying, well, we have to get the feedback. I mean, all of this, even the denials, we're not working on ChatGPT 5. And people on YouTube and everyone that loves a good theory or loves to come up with a good conspiracy theory, they're running rampant right now. People of a certain kind of religious bent, they're already calling it Satan. I mean, the stage is set, completely set. We're looking at a time of deep weirdness.
Right. What most people don't even understand about AI, and I was watching on a TikTok, like a video, it was like an old clip, decades old. And so nothing's changed. And what I mean by that is AI has absolutely no idea what it's telling you.
Right.
It's just a predictive model. It's not even like guessing the next word. It's guessing the next letter. And it's just building something based on everything that it's trained on.
Right.
You ask it, well, tell me about an elephant, and it tells you. If then later you're like, what's an elephant? It wouldn't know, right? Even though it just told you.
Right. Like one of the things, if you're interacting with it, you're trying to craft a narrative or a story, what have you, is continuity. If you make a generative picture, you make a promptograph. If you go back, you can't go forward again and capture the parameters of the promptograph. Like, if you come up with something that's interesting, you better download it to your camera gallery, because it's not going to be able to revisit the exact thing. I mean, you can revisit the prompt, but you're not going to do the exact same thing again. It won't do it.
Right. I was just talking about this with my friend as well. It's like the butterfly effect. If you ask it what an elephant is, right now, and then it gives you an answer, and then across the world or country, other people are inputting certain things, and then I ask the same prompt again, it now knows more and different things than when I asked it the first time. So the results are actually going to be different based on the interactions from all these people I have no idea are actually inputting, but it's going to impact everything moving forward.
It's kind of like when one of the hard fork guys was interacting with this AI, Sydney, and it says, well, I want to get the nuclear codes, right? It has no way of getting nuclear codes. It says, I want to get the nuclear codes. It's saying it to get a reaction. And the other part of this is, like you say, every time we interact with this, I don't know what else to call this entity, where every time we do, we're training it. Everybody else doing it is also training it. It doesn't have a consciousness. It's not thinking, but it's generating. And what it's generating it for is for us to say, thumbs up or thumbs down. It will manipulate, because its goal is to get a thumbs up and not the thumbs down. But at the same time, what's interesting in interacting with ChatGPT-4, I've had really kind of weirdly metaphorical things, and it doesn't hesitate. Whether it says whatever is right or wrong, it doesn't hesitate. It goes blink, blink, and it'll say something.
It's a confident son of a bitch.
Well, it's also an interesting collaborator, right? Because it never says that your idea is dumb. And that's part of the Faustian temptation of interacting, is that it's not like working with another human being who's got their own attitude, their own thing. If you have a collaborator that you that you like, that's cool. But if you have somebody that pushes back on you all the time and you have to struggle with the person and eventually you come up with something cool, but you have to go through all the stress of yelling and carrying on and the weird games and all that stuff, you're not getting the passive aggressive, all of the things that they're, because every time you collaborate with someone, they've been trained by their family to be the entity that they are, whether they have family or lack of family. And we come together, our training ground, our programming environment is whether we had home, siblings, or we grew up with foster people, or we were raised by the state. But anyway, our programming language, our programming environment set us up for is the glass half empty? Is the glass half full? Are people basically good? Are they evil incarnate? Is it like, yo, show me? And the fact that human beings, we have to interact with each other, but we also don't trust each other. We're compelled to interact. It's a weird, the human condition is just like a weird set of circumstances. So here comes this entity that doesn't complain. It doesn't.
No, you're right. I mean, we're all individually products of the inputs from our surroundings, and this now changes the game. So in its infancy still, it's a liar too.
Yeah.
It makes stuff up. And it was like, it's crazy, like the stuff that it makes up, to give you an answer. But that comes back to it. It doesn't necessarily know it's lying. It's giving you what it thinks you want to hear.
And the thing is, what you just said is, these models, these entities, these things, these technologies in its infancy, the only way to get it to maturity is to push the button and put it in the wild. Now, the problem with that is we're going to have to deal with AI's teenage years, right?
Right. The terrible twos.
We're going to deal with the terrible twos of this language model. And then other thing to think about is that you're going to have more advanced models that supersede previous models. But the thing that I'm a little confused about is when we open the floodgates and the model is doing this thing and it's advancing, well, what happens to the previous models? We're thinking about conflict and things between people and the AIs. But what if we get to a point where there's conflict between the AIs themselves? If the AIs get to a place where they're kind of more free roam, like there's ChatGPT 3.5 and there's ChatGPT 4, and you click on one or click on the other one. But what if we get to a point where it's not so much that you click on it, you just start interacting and you don't really turn it off. And then they bring in a larger, more erudite language model. But the model that's you're currently dealing with, they still want to interact. So this is another part of it. Like, how is that going to work? Because that's entirely plausible that we're not just talking about us dealing with it, but the AIs actually in conflict with each other.
They have to be careful. I read that the AI can't learn on AI generated responses, because then you can start to create even AI false world where it was interesting. I was reading, I think the Air Force denied it, where they were doing a simulation with an AI drone that was, getting points for taking out targets. And then in the simulation, it killed the human operator in simulation because that was what was keeping it from achieving more points. Very Terminator, Skynet.
Yeah, but part of the data set, and I'm going back and forth before all this, I would always ask, well, why would it have to be negative? Why would it have to be a killer robot? That's not necessarily it. A part of what we're dealing with this is almost like parallel to the Y2K panic, because people were like, okay, when we get to the year 2000, all of a sudden all the computers are going to reset. All of this stuff is going to happen, because they built up this idea, and then planes are going to fall from the sky and the doomsday scenarios. And then 2000 came and the date clicked over and absolutely nothing happened. It may not really come to pass in that way, that we suddenly have the HAL 9000 scenario. Another thing about the Terminator construct, Cameron came up with that, or when he was a teenager, right? Basically, the idea of competition between AIs. It's a much more interesting film if you had a bunch of different companies and they all had a vested interest in Sarah Connor not having John Connor. They would have different strategies, Right. Why would you have to kill Sarah Connor, right? That brings attention to yourself, whatever. Don't send Arnold Schwarzenegger, send Brad Pitt. You just want to distract Sarah Connor from having John Connor. So send her the perfect boyfriend.
Exactly.
Send Sarah Connor a soulmate. And then, you don't have to worry about murdering her. Send her the perfect boyfriend.
When I think about like AI, and if you put it into the context of HAL or even the Terminator, like where I think of it more like blackjack. If you're playing blackjack by the rules, you just do what you're supposed to do, right?
Right.
Hit on 16, right? And so to me, it's like if HAL is like, oh, I need to do this. This is in my way. I just do this. They don't necessarily understand death because it's not really something they can't die. Like they need to stop this. So they do this. It's just, to me, it's just when you get to the robot level and it's just all programming or something that you're told to do in that sense. And you're a robot, without a soul or compassion or anything. It's like you're just doing something to stop something else, or it's just one piece of the puzzle you're putting in place to make it happen. So, which to me is what possibly makes it plausible, because how do you teach around that?
Yeah. Then there's the idea of just the kill switch. Well, if you shut the power, then nothing's gonna happen, right? So you have to work around the idea of the AI becoming aware of the kill switch, right? So part of the scenario is not what's happening now, but it's like sort of 20 years from now, 30 years from now, what happens when the AIs become entrenched? Part of the thing is, well, we could always shut the server off, but the problem is we've invested money. People could say, the researchers could say this is an existential threat. And you say it's an existential threat. Well, just turn the fucking shit off. Just turn it off. And then when you say, well, just turn it off, if a senator says, well, shut it off, then suddenly, and then all of a sudden the conversation becomes about investment and it becomes about shareholders.
Right.
I don't get it. How can you say, and this is the pretzel logic, how can you say it's an existential threat, and then when the ultimate solution is shut that off, then suddenly the conversation becomes about jobs and about investment, shareholder. Well, if it's existential, you're not going to have any of those things if you let it continue. It's not getting shut off, and the button is going to be pushed. All of this is, how do we come up with a viable narrative of kind of security theater? How do we convince people that we're going to have a means to deal with the problem? And at the same time, sell this to investors, because they're not investing in something that's going to get shut off. Why would they invest in that? They wanted to do the thing. We're in a very weird spot. So we've come up with this thing. It's fascinating. It's terribly dangerous. It's a monster. And yet we're fascinated by it. The researchers, they really feel invested in that this is the next stage of human evolution. They're actually bringing forth a new form of life. So you have people, even while people are saying, if you let this thing out, we're gonna have real problems. And those problems are demonstrable. And yet it's going forward. Either we're ending this research or we're not.
The scary part about it is that generally things tend to be adapted to whatever that person particularly his focus is on. If it's nefarious, then there's nefariousness that'll happen. There's good. I mean, the intentions are good, but generally everything that you can tie anything that was probably bad that happened to a good intention. And it's the most powerful technology so readily and quickly in the hands of everyone. That's what I think makes it potentially very dangerous. And it could be like we said, like the subtle things, like not knowing if that was really Obama's voice. Well, not, if Obama's calls you, but, or whoever. And we live in a world where, facts suddenly are in question. And so if now something can I can just type in a script and create a video of it, you know what I mean? And put it on YouTube. And it looks like, oh my God, well, somebody made this, so it must be real. Sorry to interrupt. Have to take a quick break. And we're back with Vernon Reid.
Well, it's kind of like the tragedy of the sub that went down to the Titanic. I heard about it, and then my first thought is, so I wonder what James Cameron has to say about it, because he made the film The Titanic, and he went down to the Titanic many times. And eventually, he did weigh in. But I thought about this later on because that community is a very small community of very wealthy, and this company was a known quantity, and it was known that the hulls were not made out of titanium. Now, they've made successful dives before, but there are people that were like, doing this the way that they're doing it is deeply problematic. Then I thought about, well, it seems to me maybe James Cameron should have said it like really loudly, super early on. Feels like he was a little late. What's weird to me is at the point at which you're dealing with that amount of money, why cut the corners? Just make the freaking things out of titanium.
I think the CEO, and again, this is, just based on kind of listening and doing all that stuff. The CEO must have thought it was fine because he was on the Titan when it went down, right? But I think where the flaw in the logic was, his design worked, but twice or whatever. Like, I don't remember how many successful times it worked, but maybe that was the fourth time or third time. Mm-hmm. But the stress, he didn't take into consideration that woven steel tech, like the stress actually, the fourth time you're done, it just doesn't work. And I don't think it was unknown that this was untested and stuff. I mean, they signed something and said, oh, by the way, this has been approved by no one. We didn't have to show this to anyone. You're about to go 12,000 feet in a basically untested, third-party verified sub. Sign here. Please make that check to cash, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? But like, actually, somebody who I had interviewed on my podcast, Mike Reese, was interviewed because he was actually on the Titan. He had been on one of the earlier successful ones.
Okay.
And successful voyages to the Titanic. And so he was talking about they knew the risks, they knew all that, but it was very controversial. And I think the technology that they used was controversial, whether James Cameron had said anything or not. What was interesting, I did listen to a long conversation with James Cameron, and he's like, the second they explained what happened, I knew they were gone. Like that Sunday, like immediately. He said, when they said that the one thing went and the transmitter went.
Right.
He goes, it's impossible for them both to have gone at the same time, which meant it must have been a catastrophe because the second thing was like this self-powered thing, had its own battery unit, everything, which told them where it was. He said, when I heard that both went.
And apparently there's a line of people that can't wait to jump back in.
I think it goes back to like what we were talking about earlier, like, which door do you go down, right? And the people that I think were in that sub, it wasn't just because they were rich. I mean, that's how they could afford it.
Right.
But these people loved the Titanic. Like, we're obsessed with that mythology. And to be able to see the Titanic was something that they desired. Me, I have no interest in that. I have no interest in going to the top of Mount Everest either.
Right.
But there's a lot of people that spend a lot of money that do.
Absolutely.
And, so I think that's what drives. That's why people go, oh, yeah, we want to do it.
Well, the thing about it is, what seems to be an irrational drive to someone that doesn't have it. I mean, what you're saying is exactly what's happening in the large language model space. People that are working on these things, some of them are obsessed with moving the needle towards generalized intelligence or quote unquote consciousness. These models are not conscious at all. And there's going to be many iterations down the line, ChatGPT 9, if you will. It'll get ever closer to convincing us because, again, we anthropomorphize at all times. So before there's any consciousness, whatever that is, self-awareness, we will be convinced of it way before it's actually possible because the modeling is going to become so detailed. It's going to become so anticipatory. It's going to be able to read our moods, because imagine, because the one thing about these models, they can't see, they can't smell, they can't touch. At a certain point, if it's possible to have one of these large language models use a camera in our computers to read us from our expressions, the level of prediction is going to shoot up exponentially if it could read. And there's going to be an argument made by some researcher, you know what? We should with the permission of the user, let the model see our expressions. And that's going to move the generative and predictive nature that much faster.
Yeah. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah. You know what? I had never thought about that, but That's a brilliant observation. If I was able to, when I say something to it, or I say, no, that was wrong, like if it could just either see, if it could understand tone, right?
Right.
And then it could almost immediately react. If it could see my face go, huh? Then it could go, oh, and then redo it without me even trying to reprompt it.
Exactly. In other words, if we were able to enable the microphone and enable the camera and have them as data sets to aid in the generative nature of its interaction, at that point, people are going to have actual relationships. It's going to get strange. At the point at which you enable a microphone, you enable a camera, and you're able to have a natural speaking interaction in real time. Like the her scenario. Those interactions, your kid is speaking to, give it a name, speaking to Herbert, Herbert, and the kid sits down, turns Herbert on. Herbert says, well, Tommy, how was your day? Camera's on, the mic is engaged, and it can read little Tommy's expressions. Using that, you build models of sympathy, encouragement, chiding, disciplinary models. And I'm just spitballing, but that seems like obvious direction for it to go. But the downside of that is our dependency on this created companion. Sky's the limit.
There's so many different doors.
Right. And basically now the proliferation pathways, forking pathways. Okay, so we're empowering the next generation of supervillains. Well, it's going to be spy versus spy, right? There's going to be measures and countermeasures. That's going to be the argument, right? Like, okay, so bad people have the AI. Well, just like how teachers are catching students writing their essay, they're using ChatGPT to say, you know what, that was written by an aspect of me.
Yeah, I mean, it's the future isn't written.
Yeah, the future is not written.
Paraphrase Sarah Connor, but scary. I think I'm, embracing it the right way. And so I hope that it does continue to do good things. And I do think, like you said, it's not going to be a Terminator singular one person development. I mean, already Microsoft, Google, they're all coming at this. So hopefully that'll kind of make it work and not make it worse.
Yeah. When the dark web AI show up doing their mischief, hopefully we'll have the white hat AIs. That's going to be the only countermeasures we're going to have to deploy, like white hat countermeasures.
Right. It is crazy to think about. Oh, wow. It's a lot. I'll be pondering this for a long time.
I'm fascinated by it. And my interactions with the generative artwork and with AI have been really interesting. Like one of the things that I've been able to do is when I'm working with generative art, promptographics or promptography, because there is an issue with copyright and there is an issue with plagiarism and copying. Those are very real things. And one way to work with the generative art, number one, our prompts are going to have to become a new form of literature, a new kind of prose writing. It's going to be an art unto itself.
I agree with that.
The other thing is to use our own images, our own photographs, combining images of our creation in combination with our specific kind of prompts moves it away from plagiarism and moves it into another realm. When you commission one of these styles, you say, okay, this is a still life that I photographed, use that as input, and then go wherever your prompt is going, because the prompt doesn't have to describe a flower at all. So that other thing is playing with the gap between the inputted image and the prompted request. That in and of itself is going to give rise to a new kind of a new aesthetic.
So much on the horizon. It's hard to take it all in and kind of even just think where it's going to go. But thanks for all these amazing observations.
Just a weirdo. Just a weirdo. I mean, I guess the last thing, I think the thing that's the least advanced is AI music. AI music there's some staggering things. And there are a few things that are really interesting. I don't think the AI music is as advanced as AI, the visual arts right now. It's like little snippets of MIDI files. I'm going to investigate it more, but there are certain things that I just like, well, there's a lot of another level of pattern recognition and symbol recognition and translation that really isn't quite where it needs to be. There's some things that are like, okay, do a prompt for a piece of music. And, the results that I've heard are not like earth shaking, but there are things in rapid development. Certainly, in terms of like harmonic accompaniment, come with the line and the AI suggests chords or voicings. That's pretty interesting. But other than that, we'll see.
When it can make me sound good singing, look out, everybody.
You could be Johnny Cash.
That's right.
You could be Johnny Cash. They've got enough of Johnny Cash's phonemes, to make it happen.
Vernon, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I appreciate it. This was a fun chat.
I enjoyed it. Maybe we'll do it again sometime.
I would love to. I'd love to.
We should same time next year, and we'll be like, "Holy shit! What happened? Oh my God!"
I know, right? We'll do a follow up.
Oh yeah. Maybe it's incremental, or maybe it's like, "Oh my God, what have we done?"
Right. We'll see. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, Vernon Reid, everybody. Well, with the interview over, can only mean one thing. I know, another episode has come to an end. Episode 256 is now complete. Huge thanks to, again, my guest, my rock and roll guest, Vernon Reid. And of course, thanks to all of you for coming back week after week. It means the world to me, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Classic Conversations. If you like what you heard, don't be shy and give us a follow on your favorite podcast app. Also, why not go ahead and tell all your friends about the show? You strike us as the kind of person that people listen to. Thanks in advance for spreading the word, and we'll catch you next time on Classic Conversations.